I'm Hal Roberts, and today on Canadian Business Spotlight, we're at the corporate headquarters of Nikon Optical in downtown Montreal. Yeah, Brian, there was mayhem. Originally, people thought there was one shooter, then it went up to 2 and 3 shooters at the same time. Here we are in the first week of July, and already we've had another near drowning. Well, do you remember that song, Walk the Line by Johnny Cash? It's a little bit like that. The woman was sexually assaulted, and she feared for the life of her and her daughter. The National Association of Realtors says the prices of homes in America had a record plunge last month. This morning's incident comes on the heels of last week's mauling of 2 researchers. Not just that, but I'm thinking some of my family members will be suffering because they love shoes. They like to go shopping. Shopping for shoes. We've just received confirmation from the military that his mother Kathy is inside, his Aunt Teresa is inside. After a long 6-year approval process, construction of the Total Jocelyn North mine will in fact go ahead. There are many different rooms inside of the Pickering Islamic Center, including this one we're in right now, which is used for ceremonial cleaning. His cousin, who was at the news earlier this morning, is asking specifically for Prime Minister Stephen Harper to intervene. You better stand by so you don't get hurt here. There you go. Okay, ready? Swing around. Point it. And let it fly! Good evening. Here we are in the first week of July, and already we've had another near drowning. It happened earlier this evening at the Don Valley Hotel. A 23-year-old man was pulled from the water. He's expected to be okay. This is the same pool where a boy died last weekend. In fact, there have already been 7 drownings just in the last week alone. 2 boys died in an apartment pool. A father and son drowned after their boat sank in Lake Huron. 2 teens were pulled from that hotel pool we just showed you, with one dying. A man from Orillia drowned, and a teenager from Bradford lost his life in a swimming pool. All this happened in the past week. The best swimmers say this can easily be prevented.
The first thing, panic.
Well, later in the newscast, we'll hear more from that accredited lifeguard with information you need to know if you plan on swimming this summer. There are lots of jobs which are not pleasant in the heat, but few compare with firefighting. This evening, crews were busy with a 4-alarm blaze on Donlands Avenue. The fire engulfed 2 semi-detached homes which had to be gutted. No word yet on the cause. The fire marshal is said to be investigating. The blaze broke out at 6:15 this evening. Fortunately, there were no serious injuries. It happened so fast, people didn't see or hear very much, just a couple of gunshots which took a man's life and put Toronto's 2010 homicide count to 27. Tonight, police are on the hunt for a gunman and a career criminal who is well known to authorities. Ben Rodriguez has more. The Toronto Police Services Board has decided that there will be an independent review into how local police handled the G20 summit protests. As Chris Stinson reports now, the review has already had its fair share of critics. The OPP's deputy commissioner is being promoted.
As the
The Premier named Chris Lewis to replace outgoing Commissioner Julianne Fantino. Lewis has been a member of the OPP for 32 years, working his way up through the ranks. He served across the province in a wide variety of frontline and specialized positions. Lewis is going to be the 13th OPP commissioner in the service's 101-year history. A walkabout by Queen Elizabeth at Queen's Park lasted less than half an hour today, but the memories for those who got close to the monarch and were able to speak with her will last a lifetime. Kesavan Balasingham has more. There was confusion and tragedy in Afghanistan today as a friendly fire incident killed 5 soldiers with the Afghan National Army. The troops were on a mission when NATO aircraft fired on them without warning. Afghan officials condemned the incident, saying they hope this will be the last of its kind. It's been a day of deadly sectarian violence in Iraq during a major Shiite festival. At least 40 people have been killed in a series of car bombs and mortar attacks around the country. 9 people were killed in Baghdad, and many more died just north of the city as the result of a large car bomb going off. Shiite gatherings and festivals are targeted by Sunni insurgents. Violence, however, is down from its peak from 7 years ago. It makes a Cold Wartime story that much more mysterious. Those alleged Russian spies caught in the U.S. may be let go and sent home in a swap. The brother of a Western spy being held in Russia met the media today and said that his brother is going to be sent back to the U.K. In exchange, the 10 Russians being held in the U.S. are going to be sent back to Russia. The men and women were arrested last month on charges they were deep cover agents posing as regular, everyday citizens. A 5-year battle for a Toronto family is finally coming to a close thanks to the help from our very own Ken Radicott. We'll have that story after the break. Yeah, Brian, there was mayhem. Originally, people thought there was one shooter, then it went up to 2 and 3 shooters at the same time. I spent quite a bit of time with Tory MP Maurice Vellacott, And basically, he was inside of Center Block at the time, around 9:30 this morning, when he heard shots fired. He was actually taking a group of students and moms and dads on a tour of Parliament Hill when he heard shots fired. They hit the ground. A security escorted them out at the same time. He says they're used to fire drills, but nothing like they've ever seen before. Police were there with their guns drawn and the long rifles at the same time. They were escorted out, and he says in his 18 years as a parliamentarian, he's never seen anything like it. Then later in the day, I had a chance to catch up with one of the NDP press secretaries, Marc-André Vailloux, and he had a kind of a different picture. He was at Center Block. He heard about 15 shots being fired at that time, and they were escorted out of Center Block right away. And at the same time, he said armed officers came in, guns drawn, and he heard about another 15 or 20 shots. Now, just behind me is the cenotaph where the soldier was killed today, and I spoke with another journalist who was at the scene. His office wasn't too far from there at the time, and he said he saw, and he knew right away that it was a soldier because he had decorated boots, army boots at the same time. And when he was down, he said there was blood everywhere. They were pumping his chest, the paramedics at the time, and they loaded him into the ambulance. So there was mayhem. By the way, the Tory MP that I was speaking with, Velacourt, also told me that 2 of his staff are still locked in Parliament Hill, and they were told to stay away from windows because police told them there might be a sniper on one of the roofs here. So there's been mayhem and lockdown all throughout downtown Ottawa. Yeah, it was quite interesting because as soon as shots were fired, as you know, I mean, our offices are on Queen, a couple of blocks from the Hill. I ran up to Parliament Hill, and right away, police were there with their semi-automatic rifles, ordering us to get down off the hill. And not just at that point in time, but they pushed us back a block, another block. That's when I hooked up with the Tory MP and other witnesses talking about the accounts of what transpired today. And the police actually wanted us to go indoors because they were worried again for a sniper on the roof. But many of the doors of the businesses were locked, so we could not get into the buildings. So we kept getting pushed further and further back. We ended up around 5 blocks away from the Hill.
All right, so
it is pretty much, you know, a lot of the people that have their cars in underground parkades here in Ottawa, they will basically have to have a very expensive cab ride to go home or take public transit. That is correct. Nikon. It's a legendary brand synonymous with quality, excellence, and an unyielding commitment to research and development in the field of optical technology. I'm Hal Roberts, and today on Canadian Business Spotlight, we're at the corporate headquarters of Nikon Optical in downtown Montreal, and I have a chance to catch up with the company's president, Pierre Langevin, and we talked about the icon known as Nikon. Welcome.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Sit down, do
Nice
a
to
little
meet
Q&A.
you.
Yeah, okay. So Pierre, what is really at the heart of Nikon?
Nikon is really the manufacturing.
So research and development would play a big role in what you do here.
Nikon does invest of the consumers.
To talk more about consumer behaviors and why not all lenses are created equally, I'm joined by 2 executives with Nikon Optical, Isabelle Mongeau, who's the VP of Marketing and Business Development, and Bianca Mazzigi, who's the VP of Sales. Ladies, welcome to the show. Isabelle, let's start with you. Lens choice is so important. Why is that?
It's very important with their eye care professionals.
You're well educated, making an informed decision, right?
Exactly.
Bianca, you've been with the company for 25 years now. That's pretty impressive on the resume. What changes have you seen on the technological side of things?
Well, we see eye strain.
With some final words, we're joined once again by the president of Nikon Optical, Pierre Langevin. Pierre, each lens truly is a work of art, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Can't wait to see what's next.
I can't wait as well. Pierre, thank you so much for joining us here on Canadian Business Spotlight. Pleasure having you on.
Thank you.
Islam has been in Canada for many years, and you may notice a fairly new mosque on Brock Road in Pickering, which was completed in August of 2008. It was modeled after the Prophet Muhammad's mosque in Medina, Saudi Arabia. The facility is not only used for worshipping, but for reaching out and helping families in need. Mohammed Rahim is the president of the Pickering Islamic Center, and he says he believes all Muslims should reach out and help those who are down on their luck.
Helping them in getting food and paying out little of their bills and stuff like that. So basically, it's a community effort from Pickering Islamic Center. It's just not only for Muslims, but this is for all the community.
Rahim is hoping that by reaching out to their community, this will help eliminate any negative stereotypes people may have towards Muslims and Islam.
People have misconception about Islam. Islam is a religion which teaches you about peace, tolerance, and love. And this is what our basic focus is on.
Imam Hassan Sheikh, one of the center's leaders, believes that Islam is the world's fastest growing religion.
One of the things that you do here, they find a lot of freedom. Freedom from, you can say, the enslavement of the world, the material, that the grasp or that the material has on them, and that they find that they're always engrossed in. They find it liberating to come into Islam and which I guess gives them a good rational perspective of that.
Members of the Pickering Islamic Center have teamed up with Christians and other faith groups in their community through a program known as Interfaith. Javad Akbar is the outreach director of the center, and he says it's very important for all religions to find a common ground.
There is a profound statement in the Holy Quran which calls God's creation as a family. And as a family, we can better serve our purpose by reaching out to other faith groups. That is the major reason why we are talking to people of different faith groups, including and particularly to the Dunbarton United Church. And this is how the beginning of an interfaith relationship and building of bridges of understanding between the faith groups. We believe in grassroots development of relationship.
Akbar says that proof that his members do care about all of humanity is through various fundraising initiatives that Pickering Islamic Center has launched in the past.
The mosque is involved in a lot of outreach work, including raising funds for the local hospital, and which is an yearly event, and also to the cause of child poverty in Canada. You know that child poverty is horrendous, and about 17.4% of children living in poverty in Canada. So we do make concerted effort and motivating people and inspiring people to come out and help and to donate for these causes and other causes which come from time to time, just as the natural calamities of earthquake and tsunami and other events. It is a continuous process that we have to go through.
Yasmin Javid is a mosque member and says there is a valid reason why women and men don't worship together.
Because we're a distraction for each other. The woman would be wondering where their husbands are, where they're praying properly, and vice versa.
Safiya Salam is a member of the Pickering Islamic Center, and she says there are many challenges young Muslim women face in Canada.
Overall, people just assume that you're oppressed as a Muslim woman and that you've been forced to wear the hijab or follow Islam, which is not true. You know, I've grown up and I've done many things on my own. I've never been forced to do anything wrong, right? And I think that's one of the biggest challenges. As discrimination comes in hold, a few things here and there, you know, looks, whatnot, people give you, but overall it's been pretty good, I guess. But the challenge that I face will probably be the acceptance from people.
Many of the youth in and around the Toronto area have made the $4.2 million 20,000 square foot Pickering Islamic Center a destination of choice for field trips.
Almost every Friday, we have students coming in from different schools, even as far away as Markham, to come and learn about Islam.
Java, there are many different rooms inside of the Pickering Islamic Center, including this one we're in right now, which is used for ceremonial cleaning.
Absolutely. This is called the wudu area, or the ablution area, where people wash up their hand, face, and feet before they enter the prayer hall and do their prayers.
When you watch a practicing Muslim worship, there is always a certain direction they kneel to give glory to their God Allah, who Muslims call the creator and sustainer of the universe.
One of the fundamental tradition of Islam is prayers. Like, prayers are held 5 times a day. When a person is standing in prayers, in fact, that person is standing in audience with the Almighty God, asking His forgiveness and seeking His refuge and glorifying Him. And why do we do 5 times a prayer, and why do we face Kaaba? That is a divinely ordained commandment from the Almighty God to the Prophet Muhammad to face the Kaaba, the black cubicle building in Mecca. It's spread out in different timings of the day, and a person who stands in audience with God Almighty is sensitive that after a few hours he's again going to face the Almighty. So he's aware of what is to be done and what is not to be done. So he's careful about transgressions and deviations from the commandments of God.
Islamic law prohibits the mosque from carrying a traditional mortgage. So the $4.2 million facility you see on Brock Road in Pickering was essentially built with an interest-free loan from members of the congregation. For Faith Journal, I'm Hal Roberts reporting.
The Canadian Fellowship of Christian Cowboys has been carrying the message of Christ to the cowboy world for over 30 years, but only recently took up the cause in Ontario.
Jesus went to them walking on the sea.
Carl Allen not only runs the Shady Lane Hereford farm near Jarvis, Ontario, but also pastors a church. He says reaching people the cowboy way is unique in its own right.
This came together about 5 years ago. It was in our hearts to start something with cattle and horses. I found that it was something that was very simple for people to become involved in. After all, people that have belonged to a mainline church, at times it can be more about the building or the pew, whereas with a cowboy church, we fellowship in sometimes an old town hall or a riding arena or even a horse stable. We've been able to reach people with maybe a cattle drive and a blazing campfire later on and encourage one another about their lives, and God seems to open up doors where people begin to share their hearts of where they're really at in life, and we're able to minister to them in a very special way rather than in the typical church structure.
You can come to this church and be who yourself. You don't have to dress up and be somebody else, but you can come and be together and go around the campfire and learn about God, and also interact with everybody and be friends with everybody and learn about each other. You get opportunities to ride and go on trail rides and meet new people and worship outdoors most of the time and go by and hear stories by the campfire.
Well, my husband is about horses and so are my kids, but I'm not. And it just lets me bring my family out and come to some place that allows us to fellowship with other people and God and invite people that wouldn't normally come to a traditional church, people we meet at the horse show, something like that. It gives them a place to come to and have fun.
Well, what I really appreciate about the church service is we get to be with the horses. And anytime I'm with a horse, I'm a happy fella. You know, the church service combines nature and the love of God. And that's a really great thing for me.
Great poem.
A cowboy church service wouldn't be the same without some cowboy poetry.
Father to Father, now this day is done. Thanks for the circle I could ride with my son. I'm a too proud old cowboy, and you've a son too. And thanks for your grace, Lord, for doing what he had to do.
Times in our lives.
Educated at a Bible school in Dallas, Texas, Allen says he became involved with the Canadian Fellowship of Christian Cowboys because of the need to reach people in the rural community. He says this is done a few ways, including through some of the big events which are held every year.
Each spring we host a pancake breakfast where we have a group of cowboys come together, and it's in a 150-year-old town hall. And we enjoy the pancake breakfast, and then oftentimes we'll have maybe a country, gospel, bluegrass band come in. And it's a little bit of a fundraiser, and we buy these cowboy Bibles that we can hand out at rodeos, give to cowboys. It's neat. You'll find many of them on the front dash of their pickup trucks or in their seats, and when they get a minute, they'll read them. And so we do that, and then we have we host a trail ride about midsummer, and that's a 3-day event, and we just really enjoy that. We maybe bring in a guest speaker from out west, and they'll really bring in some cowboy stuff, teach us how to rope, maybe ride a little bit better than we have been. And then later on in the summer, there's different rides being hosted at other ranches where we'll go out, and one year we did a cattle drive. One of the funnest events we've done at the end of the summer was called the Amazing Race, and we had teams of 3 people on horses, and they would go out and just like the TV show Amazing Race, and it's just a great draw for people to come, and we use the finances and the offerings from these things to promote the gospel through Bibles and literature.
Allen says trail rides seem to also bring out the best and worst in people, which again gives him the opportunity to touch on people's faith.
I find often is during a trail ride or when you're back at the ranch unsaddling your horse or just getting things put away, it's when people have maybe spent a little extra time with you, and there's almost like a divine appointment where they'll begin to share a little bit about their lives, maybe some situations they're going through, and then oftentimes we're able to relate some real life circumstances where Christ has helped us out, and we're able to then bring the gospel to them in a very pleasant way. It's the good news of the gospel, really, that we're sharing with people.
Now, you can't really be a cowboy with the Canadian Fellowship of Christian Cowboys without actually learning how to lasso. And Vic Robinson can help me with that right now. Vic, what's our first step?
I'm an amateur, but I'll help you as best I can. We have to have a big loop, first of all. This is called a spoke from a Honda to where you hold your hand. Keep your finger pointed towards the target. Be ready to reel out the balance of the loop. As you make your swing, you keep your hand in a vertical position and keep it going in orbit, like this.
Ah, no problem. Okay, hold it back like this.
Yep, be ready to reel out
and then I swing it around my head?
Yep, be ready to reel out the excess.
Okay, all the excess? You better stand back so you don't get hurt here.
There you go.
Okay, ready?
Point
swing
it
around.
Point it.
And let it fly!
Whoa!
Oh, just... Wouldn't something like this be more popular out west in the prairies, let's say in cowboy country near Calgary? Why in Ontario? It sounds like it'd be a hard sell.
It is very popular out west, and it's gaining popularity here in rural Ontario. Cowboy rodeos and things, everyone owns maybe 5-10 acres, and everyone wants to own a horse. I believe that everyone just has a little bit of cowboy in them, and they all want to get involved with their animals and be in touch with nature. It seems to be something that people really enjoy.
Members say the ultimate goal for the Canadian Fellowship of Christian Cowboys is to bring the gospel of Jesus Christ to those who enjoy the cowboy way, one trail ride at a time. For Faith Journal, I'm Hal Roberts reporting.